Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about lifestyle strategy change number 7. So this video is going to be discussing high intensity interval training, which is a type of exercise. The acronym is HIIT, H-I-I-T. This is really, really effective because just like resistance training, your metabolism after this workout is going to be elevated, and it's going to remain elevated for a long period of time, which means that after you exercise, you're going to be burning a lot more calories than you normally would on a day that you didn't perform a HIIT exercise routine. HIIT is actually very simple in terms of the fundamentals, which is that you would be alternating periods of very low intensity with periods of high intensity. But I don't want you to look at this in this kind of all or nothing, black or white thinking. If you are unable to really do high intensity intervals, you can do moderately high intensity intervals or even moderate intervals. Any degree of this kind of training is going to give you a better benefit than steady state cardio, where you're just basically doing, some kind of low to moderate exercise for a period of time. And the other thing about HIIT is because you're going to be exerting more effort during this kind of program than a steady state cardio program, you're not going to be able to do it for as long. And so the routine tends to be much shorter. I think a perfect amount of time for HIIT is 20 minutes. I think anything less than that is just not going to be, that valuable. And anything more than that, much more than that, like 40 minutes or so, you're probably not really doing as high of intensity intervals as you could, because if you were, you probably wouldn't be able to do it for 40 minutes. So 20 minutes, a half an hour max, right? So what you're basically going to do is you're going to start off with 1 minute of low intensity kinds of cardio, and then you're going to up the intensity for a minute, go back down to 1 minute of low intensity, up the intensity for a minute. This can be done with so many different types of cardiovascular exercise. So the one it's done most commonly with is running. So what you would do is you'd be on a treadmill and you'd walk for a minute, again at a moderate pace, and then you would crank the treadmill up to a much faster speed, and you would run for a minute. Of course, the faster you run, the more intense that interval is. But again, if you're just starting out, then you don't have to go that high in the intensity to still get a great benefit from this. You can have like a brisk run or a brisk jog, and that's fine. And that can be a goal that you work towards, that as you do this routine, more and more and more, that you will start upping the intensity of those high intensity intervals. So you can start off at a more moderate intensity level, right? Again, this can be done with any kind of cardiovascular exercise. If you are doing swimming, which I think is great because swimming is very low chance of any kind of injury, you could do, let's say, 1 minute of a lazy man's backstroke, right? Which is basically just kind of fanning the arms in and out and the legs as well. It's a very low intensity kind of swim stroke. Or you can do a slow breaststroke, very casual, and that would be your rest. And then you would follow that up with maybe a very fast freestyle stroke, So if you had like a 25-yard pool, maybe, from one end to the other would be one interval, right? And then you would do the slow breaststroke there and back, and then you would do a fast freestyle stroke there and back. And it doesn't have to be this one-to-one correspondence. So in other words, the high intensity interval can be half the time of the low intensity interval. There's many shades of gray to this, so that you could do the lazy man's backstroke from one end of the pool to the back, and then a freestyle stroke just to one end, and then back to the low intensity lazy man backstroke there and back, et cetera, et cetera. It can also be done on a bicycle or a stationary cycle, where again, you're doing 1 minute, maybe of a very low resistance if you're doing a stationary bike, and you're doing kind of, a moderate pace for your low intensity interval. Then you may crank up the resistance on the stationary bike and do it a little bit faster, or a lot of bit faster if you can, for 1 minute, and then you alternate it like that, or 1 minute, half a minute, whatever works for you. There are so many different kinds of cardiovascular exercise that can be acclimated to a HIIT routine, and I think it's just an awesome alternative to what many of us consider boring state cardio or steady state cardio, where you're just kind of doing this monotonous pace for like 40, 45 minutes, or even upwards to an hour. So this is another strategy for exercising. If you've never done cardio before, or you haven't done cardio for a long time, I would not start off with this. I would do steady state cardio for a while, get used to that, get used to your body, getting accustomed to that kind of routine. And then eventually you can start transferring over to a HIIT routine. And again, when you first start a HIIT routine, I think it's best to ease into it and have those high intensity intervals not so intense. And then eventually the goal is to up the intensity of those intervals. You don't, nor should you, I don't think, have to up the intensity of the resting intervals or the low intensity intervals, which is basically what they're called. The low intensity intervals, a lot of times we call rest intervals. There's no need for that. You can keep that at the same exact pace as you keep upping the high intensity intervals, because those are the ones that are really going to ramp up your metabolism and really shed the calories. The rest intervals are really just so you can catch your breath and be able to exert a lot of energy during those high intensity intervals. So this is another lifestyle change strategy. It is number 7. Also, I want to say at the end of this video, if you guys have any specific questions for me, I'm always trying to come up with new content and new ideas to share with you all. So if there's like a specific question you have, or even a general one, post it to my Facebook page, and I will be sure to make a video that addresses that question. This is Dr. Fields. I hope you all have a great weekend.